Longevity Lifestyle Designers. This is Zach here with Secrets of Longevity.com, and in this video I'm going to speak about adaptogenic herbs all around the world and some of the top ones and the terms they use in the different parts of the world, which generally mean the same thing. Now, an adaptogenic herb, just to recap it, I've talked about it in previous videos, is that it is a term used for a substance that alters the body's processes in some way, brings them into more balance and harmony, and by the exact definition, an adaptogen can't throw your body off balance. And it's, to a certain degree, you're able to take it to very large doses, and it's not contraindicated for long-term, continual daily usage. Now, this is we could say there's a sliding scale in terms of a medicinal herb which has very concentrated properties which you don't want to take for too long a period of time, or there is very specific dosage ranges that you don't want to exceed because it can cause problems in the body. So if we were to imagine a sliding scale, and on this end you have very highly medicinal herbs such as garlic. Even more medicinal would be some of the very almost like caustic or very harsh poisons that can be used in a very small amount for a very short period of time, specifically for acute disease. And then all the way on the other end you'd have herbs that are verging on being a food, that are very nutritive and tonifying and can be taken with food, almost like food, on a daily basis, and they help build up the body's natural processes, nutrient reserves, and, like I said, bring everything into balance. Now, every herbal system around the world has what they might call the top longevity promoting herbs or health promoting herbs that you would almost find in their traditional diets that they consume in either tonic brews, soups, or among with food, or even on its own in a tea form, or taken in some other way. And you see these herbs that are in certain areas of where they grow consumed in this way to help the body's processes, like I said, bring things into balance and help strengthen the body to ward off common diseases like colds, flus, pneumonia, parasites, infestations of various kinds of the body. I'm just going to talk about 3 cultures here, and their terms for these adaptogenic herbs can be applied to the other systems around the world. In the Western Hemisphere, Western herbalism, which would also include Europe, they have a term known as nutritive herbs, which includes things you would also call food, but in their sense they call them herbs because they can be used for specific things. Like seaweeds are actually classified as herbs in this case, and they can be used to help reduce swelling. They can be used as poultices when prepared in a certain way to bring down lumps. They can have, because it has such a cold, damp energy to it in terms of herbal energetics, can be used to bring down swelling and hard, almost calcified lumps in the body. That's just one example. But then you also have things like alfalfa, red clover, green tea, slippery elm bark, and that's an amazing one. It's very nutritive, it's mucilaginous and helps keep the bowels regular, but has a number of healing benefits to the whole digestive tract. And that was traditionally used by natives, and it's also used by Western herbalists. And then other Western nutritive herbs, just to name a few more, is nettle leaf, nettle root, oat straw, and getting on into the Chinese herbal system, they consider tonic herbs to be what they call adaptogenic herbs. Now, this Chinese definition of a tonic herb is definitely an adaptogen. It's a nutritive herbs if we were to compare it to Western herbalism, but Western herbalism also has the term tonic that they apply to herbs, but in this case they don't mean nutritive or adaptogenic herbs. So that must be kept in mind if you're comparing Eastern and Western herbs, and the definitions and attributes associated with each one is they're not going to be the same way of classification. And that's the confusing thing about the different herbal systems from around the world, is they use different words to classify their herbs, but often some of those terms are used by both systems, but they mean different things. I think down the road more and more people will start to use specific terms that are overarching, that apply to all herbs from all around the world, and that would be ideal, sort of like a universal system and terms. And I believe that this system is going to use sort of the most popular terms that would embody the qualities of those herbs and that in all these different cultures and herbal systems. So I do think that eventually the word tonic is going to actually mean tonify and thus be associated with adaptogenic herbs and nutritive herbs. But if you're researching on the internet, for instance, a Western herb, and you see the word tonic associated with it, you might just wonder about that and what that means. But that basically means it's a cleansing herb. It's definitely more to the medicinal side. It can be purging herbs that cause you to move your bowels quite rapidly or to urinate quite profusely. So just keep that in mind. Western herbalism uses the word tonic in a different sense than the Chinese term, but more and more people are referring to tonic as an adaptogen. Now some examples of Chinese tonic herbs would be, the top ones are ginseng, reishi, hushawu, schizandra berry, goji berry, astragalus, and these are just some of my favorites, and you can learn more about them below. If I've written an article about any of them, I'll have it posted below, and also some of the herbs I'm talking about you can find links to below if you want to check them out and try them out for yourself. Now in the Indian or Ayurvedic system of herbalism, they have their own terminology once again, and what they call Rasayana herbs is sort of the term for tonic herbs or nutritive herbs or adaptogens. And just like the Chinese system and the Western system with the nutritive herbs, they would always take these herbs with food. These were components to the diet that were in these different locales. They would have different unique herbs to each area that would be used as part of the diet to help fortify and strengthen the body. And they would often take them steeped or boiled in milk, mixed with honey, taken with food, depending if you think of the spices in Indian food are very commonly talked about in there, can have these Rasayana type properties. So some of these herbs would be things like ashwagandha, tulsi, otherwise known as holy basil, shatavari, gotu kola, which is almost interchangeable with brahmi, also known as bacopa monrari. And then there's also shilajit, that's probably the absolute #1 herb, anti-aging herb in Ayurvedic medicine. And you'll also notice if you experiment with the tonic or adaptogenic herbs from each of these systems, is that they have certain qualities about them that are similar within the whole group. So if we were to talk about the top, 20, 30 herbs in Chinese medicine that are tonics, you can start to find they have a similar quality about them, even though they might have a variety of different effects on the body. They have similar flavors. It's interesting to note that the Chinese herbs really focus on roots. And if you look at the top herbs, they're roots, generally roots, mushrooms, and barks, whereas in Ayurvedic herbs, a lot of them are actually leaves. They're top herbs. And then in the Western sense, there's a few different things. Some of them are leaves, some of them are barks. So I hope you enjoy this brief lesson on herbs from around the world and their adaptogenic properties and how to understand the different classifications that they're using or were traditionally used for these groups of herbs. So I highly recommend exploring these herbs, using them in your daily cuisine, and remember to embrace life without limits.